You're listening to the February 11th, 2016 edition of the Surfwatch Cyber Risk Roundup, a weekly podcast that's focused on how the world of cybercrime is impacting business. The Surfwatch Cyber Risk Roundup is brought to you by Surfwatch Labs. Hey everybody out there, I am Jeff Peters, Surfwatch Labs editor, here as always with Matt Leifus, Surfwatch Labs writer. On this podcast every week, we bring you the top 5 trending cybercrime events, advisories, and legal actions from the past week, based on Surfwatch Labs data. So yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it as always and throw it over to you, Matt, for the top cybercrime event from the past 7 days.
Coming in number 1, and this week, we saw a lot of government happenings, I'll say. Coming in number 1, we have the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI were hacked, and they were hacked after an initial Department of Justice employee was hacked, and I'll get into that here. A pro-Palestine hacker made good on their promise this week by releasing the data of more than 9,000 Department of Homeland Security employees. This pro-Palestine hacker posted some content on Twitter, posted the files of these 9,000 employees, and then said that there's going to be about 20,000 FBI employees to follow, and he made good on that promise. The hackers claim to have compromised the email accounts of a Department of Justice employee, which is actually what led to this information. So the breach of this Department of Justice employee through his email is actually what led to these other compromises. The Department of Justice is, of course, investigating the incident. And a spokesman from the Department of Justice named Peter Carr, this is what he had to say. The department is looking into the unauthorized access of a system operated by one of its components containing employee contact information. This unauthorized access is still under investigation. However, there is no indication at this time that there is any breach of sensitive, personally identifiable information. End quote. I'm sure we'll see more about this, Jeff. It was a kind of big deal, top trending target for the week. And it seems like as the weeks keep going on, we see a little bit more information about this play out.
Yeah, and I haven't really honestly read too much about this attack this week, but if you guys are interested in learning more about that, I've been exchanging some emails with a former special agent in charge of special operations of the FBI's New York office. He's now the CSO of CryptoZone, and I'm going to interview him tomorrow, and we're going to put that up on the Cyber Chat podcast, the other Surfwatch Labs podcast, on Tuesday. So we're going to talk about that attack and some other stuff with the FBI. So just something to keep in mind if you're interested in learning more about that attack.
I'll definitely be listening to that. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, like you said, Matt, there was a lot of government stuff this week, and once again, it seems like a couple weeks in a row now we've been talking about the IRS. We're probably going to talk about tax stuff every week until tax season's over. Criminals attempted to steal 464,000 e-file pins from the IRS. So that's the number 2 story. The IRS confirmed that it was attacked in January, and these criminals targeted an IRS web application used by taxpayers to obtain these electronic filing pins. Taxpayers using this service have to enter their names, social security numbers, birth dates, and residential addresses. The criminals used this information to obtain e-file pins. More than 460,000 were targeted, and the criminals successfully obtained about 100,000 pins before the IRS stopped the attack. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, pretty interesting. What was it? What was the big one last year? It was the Get transcript.
Yeah, that was the Get transcript, where basically by answering knowledge-based questions, a series of them, you could get your old tax returns. There's actually a lawsuit ongoing related to that we'll touch on in the legal section. But yeah, it seems like every year there's something with the IRS.
Yeah, all the time, and it's a big deal. That's a lot of good information, and it seems like this is an attack that it almost seems like it's very successful. You hear about this quite a bit, and keeps happening. And yeah, I'm sure like Jeff said, there'll be more as the weeks go on.
And that's why you should file your taxes right away. I already filed my taxes, got my return back. So cybercriminals, have at me. Go ahead and try to file. I already got my money.
Absolutely. That's really good. I think that should become like I've read a lot of tax breach advice. And I don't see that tip quite as much. To just file your taxes right away. I do see it, but not as much as it should, I think. I think that's a really good tip.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in number 3, the gift card company Gift, that's spelled GYFT, they suffered a data breach. Gift is a popular gift card platform. Gift allows customers to buy, send, and manage gift cards from hundreds of retailers. An unknown actor accessed 2 cloud providers used by Gift. The dates were between October 3rd and December 18th, 2015. The attacker was able to view and download Gift user information stored in these cloud providers. The information at risk includes names, contact information, birth dates, and gift card numbers. Although it has not been confirmed, gift cards could have been used to make unauthorized purchases. Login credentials could have also been compromised. You ever use Gift, Jeff? I've been on there once.
Honestly, I'd never heard of them before just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. So if you had gift cards out there, they didn't really provide a list of what retailers could have been used or affected, but just keep that in mind. They were attacked. So.
Yeah, and the number 4 top trending story this week was the Bitcoin lending system Loanbase. They were hacked, and it was found out that it was due to a WordPress bug. A WordPress bug has been blamed for this data breach at Loanbase, and Loanbase is a Bitcoin lending company formerly known as BitLending Club. According to the company, the breach took place through a WordPress flaw in the company's blog. Loanbase said customer information could have been compromised in the attack. The information at risk includes customer names, addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers. The hackers were also able to steal 8 Bitcoin, which is about $3,000. And this is a pretty recent attack. Loanbase just announced this breach yesterday. And as a precaution, the company took down its website to apply some security updates. And I believe the website should be back up today. I'm sure by the time you listen to this, it'll be back up.
Bitcoin was a pretty popular topic. It has been. It seems like times, it's not always in the news, but we see a lot of Bitcoin related content as well. Just add this.
Yeah,
to the
there
list.
was a period about a year ago where there was just that back when all the Bitcoin companies seemed to be getting breached and everyone was getting ripped off, and seems to have died down a little bit. I don't know if people have kind of wisened up a little bit from that period.
Well, that's why threat intelligence is so important. I mean, you get to see the trends of what's happening, and so what criminals are going after. For a while it was Bitcoin, and possibly people did kind of smarten up and more protections are in place. And I'm going to prove this point again here because the number 5 was the University of Central Florida. They suffered a data breach, and it seems like there was a time not long ago where it was like all these universities were in the news. It still happens quite a bit, but it's just the trends of everything that you see. You kind of get an understand of where people are trying to attack and exploit things. So number 5, University of Central Florida suffers data breach. The University of Central Florida revealed it had experienced a data breach earlier this week. Around 63,000 people, including current and former students and staff members, are affected by the incident. The university said it became aware of the breach in January. An immediate investigation followed once the university became aware of the breach. So far, the university has found that Social Security numbers were accessed in the breach. However, payment card information and medical information appears to be safe. And that rounds out the top 5 trending targets from the week.
Now moving on to the cyber advisory section, just some of the warnings from researchers and other things that have come out over the past 7 days. One of the most talked about things is there's a new neutrino exploit kit feature that's been thwarting researchers and makes it harder to detect. Now, exploit kits, they are one of the most effective ways to infect computers with malware. We talk about the Angler exploit kit a lot as one of the most popular ones. Neutrino's up there as well. But security researchers are constantly looking into these exploit kits and attempting to gather information about them, and cybercriminals are always trying to stop this research from happening by doing different techniques, to make it more difficult. So anyways, what happened was developers of this infamous neutrino exploit kit have added a new feature that can deter security researchers from studying their attacks. By using passive OS fingerprinting, the neutrino exploit kit can remain anonymous while profiling a computer by avoiding firewalls and other intrusion detection equipment. The neutrino exploit kit servers will appear to be down, removing it from suspicion. And this new feature was discovered by security researchers during a routine check on their computers. When the researchers attempted to connect their computers to the servers, that delivered the neutrino exploit kit, a connection could not be made, and that indicated some suspicious activity. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, it does. And I actually wrote this alert up earlier this week, and essentially, like Jeff said, developers of these exploit kits, they're constantly trying to seek ways to remain anonymous, keep cybersecurity experts from studying their methods, and this is just another way that they do that. One of the big things here from some of the articles I was reading is it sets a disturbing trend because, anytime you see something that's successful, people are going to probably try to mimic that. And so other exploit kits are going to probably try to attempt this method as well. And everything becomes more sophisticated, harder to detect, harder to study. So it just makes things that much more unknown, and you don't know things are coming. And it's a pretty big threat, and I'm sure we'll read more about that in the future as well. The number 2 top trending advisory, and I just like saying this one because it reminds me of the Terminator. It's called the T9000, the T9000 backdoor Trojan. It's targeting Skype users, so Skype users watch out. This backdoor Trojan was recently discovered targeting Skype users. The backdoor was dubbed T9000 and is a newer variant of the T5000 backdoor.
It's like the upgraded Trojan.
Yeah, so it's like Terminator 2. It's not Arnold. It's the liquid metal guy. This new variant can identify and invade security software on a victim's computer. Sounds like we were just kind of talking about that. The primary purpose of this new Trojan variant is to capture encrypted data and take screenshots of specific applications. Primarily, large corporations that use Skype have been targeted. However, that doesn't mean the individual user, just like, ignore this, it's no big deal. But typically with larger organizations, they have more data, obviously, so there will probably be a bigger target.
And then the third advisory this week, this one I thought was kind of interesting. There's this ATM maker is warning of a new skimming technique. I think Brian Krebs wrote about this earlier this week.
Yep.
ATM maker NCR, they're warning ATM users about a new skimming attack that involves, quote, keypad overlays, hidden cameras, and skimming devices plugged into the ATM network cables to intercept customer card data, end quote. NCR, they published an alert about this new attack on February 8th this week. And according to the alert, both NCR and Diebold ATMs have observed this skimming attack. NCR warned these devices are plugged into the ATM network cables and intercept customer card data. Additional devices are attached to the ATM to capture the PIN.
Now, what's interesting about this, Jeff, is I actually saw a picture of one of the ATMs that they were describing. Obviously, we can't really show you that here talking about it, but it kind of looked pretty obvious that this ATM was tampered with. I mean, you had not only, typical with the ATM, you don't really see, if you do a drive-up one, I don't really know if you see any cords or anything, but this seems to be ATMs that are more in a building, and you can see the cords. I mean, this ATM had just a bunch of extra stuff plugged into the side. So it's just one of those things, if you ever go to an ATM and something is fishy, you see something is tampered with, like where the keys are or anything like that, just don't use it. Just go to another ATM. But it is, anytime we see one of these new skimming techniques, and it seems like there's a lot of them, and people try to really take advantage of ATMs, just be wary of that. It's no big deal. If you don't feel safe, just don't do something, and just watch out for that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the picture on Brian Krebs' website. He wrote about it this week, and normally with a skimmer, you those are kind of easy to detect if you know what it looks like. It kind of goes over the card holder, so as you put your card through it, it gets skimmed. Now these, it is kind of obvious looking at the picture, but they're a little different because they're kind of on the side and the back of the ATM. So, I can see if you're not used to looking for, if you're just used to hearing about skimmers, you look, I don't see nothing crazy there. I can see how it could be easy for an average person to overlook those extra cables coming out of there.
Yeah, I could see that too. And to be honest, when you go to the ATM, you're in a hurry. So,
you're in a hurry.
I need my money.
Yeah, come on.
I get mad at the ATMs that take more than 5 seconds to spit out your money. I like the ones that's instant, so. Coming in number 4 this week, we have a cross-platform remote access Trojan that attacked 400,000 systems in the last 3 years. And this was a report A Java-based Trojan has been used to attack, like I said, over 400,000 systems over the last 3 years. The cross-platform remote access Trojan is being sold to several criminals, ranging from the opportunistic cybercriminal to the cyber espionage groups. The remote access Trojan is used in the following variants: Adwind, which is one of the most popular from what I understand, Alien Spy, Fruitus, Unrecom, Sockrat, JRat, and JSocket. The Adwin variant is written in Java, which means it has the potential to affect any operating system that has Java installed. This includes Windows, Mac, Mac OS X, Linux, and Android. The Trojan can be used to, quote, steal files, keystrokes, and save passwords, to record audio and video through the computer's webcam and microphone, and more. So kind of a nasty little remote access Trojan. And the Adwin variant of this is the most popular one because it affects some of the most prevalent operating systems. So just another wonderful little bit of news to keep in mind for security threats going forward.
Crazy coincidence here, Matt. As you were reading that, as we're recording this, my phone beeps. And our analyst just sent out a alert to our customers about this very threat.
Well, would you look at that?
That just kind of cracked me up. I looked at my phone buzzes and I look at it and I'm reading one of the same things you're talking about.
Yeah, and what Jeff's talking about there, Surfwatch Labs has a mobile app that our customers can, just in case, some of our customers out there aren't aware of this, but I believe we do tell them about it, of course.
I'm sure the sales guys do.
I'm sure the sales guys do a pretty good job. But that's a Surfwatch Labs mobile app that keeps you updated depending on your plan, any alerts and news and things like that. So it's very useful. We're sitting right here doing the podcast, and Jeff got updated immediately about an alert that just went out. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. And then the last advisory for the week, it wouldn't be a Surfwatch Cyber Risk Roundup without talking about the latest malvertising out there. Once again, Jerome Segura at Malwarebytes, he's been on the podcast. He writes all these blogs for Malwarebytes about these different malvertising campaigns. And this time, they found one targeting TMZ. So if you're into the gossip, celebrity gossip kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So this gossip news publication, TMZ, they had its website compromised via malvertising. And this website is just the newest target in a malvertising campaign that has already targeted sites like the Jerusalem Post and the film review site Rotten Tomatoes. I check Rotten Tomatoes all the time.
I know, right?
Yeah, it gets me a little worried. According to Segura, he said that the cybercriminals are using content delivery platform Cloudflare to hide their back-end server's location and encrypt ad delivery. And for those who don't know, Cloudflare, they've been in the news quite a bit in the past because a lot of the bad guys, quote, use them. And a lot of people, they get a lot of flack because basically saying they should, not give business to these types of people. That's just a side note. Maybe not that interesting.
Sure it is.
But anyways, so if the right conditions are met, as always with these malvertising campaigns, the user is redirected to the Angler exploit kit, which seems to be the exploit kit that's pretty common in these malvertising campaigns. And then obviously that Angler exploit kit will try to find an exploit because these exploit kits have multiple different things that they can look for vulnerabilities. And you could end up getting infected with malware because of this. So, not really much you can do as a user other than stay up to date and, have good antivirus and all that kind of stuff. But just browsing around, checking on the latest celebrity gossip, you can get infected.
Yeah, we gotta get your. Is J-Lo still a thing? No, not J-Lo's Jennifer Lopez, of course. What am I? Oh, was it Brangelina? That's a thing, right? Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. That's a thing.
I think they're still together.
I think they are too. Well, if I go on TMZ, I'd find out. But
now it's J-Law, Jennifer
J-Law,
Lawrence. Yeah.
That's what.
J-Law's back when we were growing up with the green dress and the Grammys and all that.
Yeah. All right, my fault. Moving on to the trending settlements, lawsuits, and legal news for the week, and this is one of the bigger things I saw. And this happened last Tuesday. President Barack Obama, announced a Cybersecurity National Action Plan, or CNAP, along with a proposal to increase federal cybersecurity funding by more than a third to $19 billion in 2017. Jeff, do you mind because I think you know a little bit more about this. I'm going to actually kick this over to you. I know a little bit about it, but would you mind kicking us off?
Yeah, sure. I wrote about this a little bit earlier today for our legal roundup. Barack Obama, he put out a Wall Street Journal editorial outlining these things, and there's also there's a fact sheet. The Cybersecurity National Action Plan has a fact sheet, so if you want to know all the details of this proposal, you can go on there. It's pretty long and in-depth, kind of covers everything. But in the Wall Street Journal editorial, just to kind of really quickly summarize what's in this Cybersecurity National Action Plan, there was 5 things that Obama mentioned in his editorial. The first one is to overhaul federal computer systems. He wants a $3.1 billion fund to do that. And one of the quotes you're going to see in a lot of these articles, if you read about this, is he said, government IT is like an Atari game in an Xbox world. So, of course, everyone's quoting that little piece of his. So that's the first thing. You need to obviously upgrade all this equipment. And then the second thing is more cyber professionals across the government. Nothing new and exciting, kind of the stuff that they always talk about. But he's talking about doing specifically more things like scholarships for giving student loans, basically trying to get these smart tech people to realize that they can better their government and be a good American and all that kind of stuff.
Well, which is good, I think, but that's one of the big problems. I mean, it's definitely easier said than done. I think so many cybersecurity professionals have talked about the need for more individuals and more talent, but the problem is getting them to actually do it.
Yeah, and for the pay that the government offers, usually They get more in the private sector. So he's trying to play a little bit on, your patriotism. And, I read an article a while back before this about basically him trying to recruit all these ID people. And that was kind of the pitch, just come for a year, come for, 2 years. It's not make it your whole career, but it's, kind of do your public duty for a year or two. And then the third thing is a better partnership with the private sector. This kind of has to do with, what was the law that was just passed?
Oh, wow.
Computer Information Security Act?
I believe so, yes.
That might be, unless they change the name of it.
Right.
So it's kind of in the same lines of that, is promoting better partnership between the government and the private sector. But in this, he also outlined, he said that they inaugurated a new cybersecurity center of excellence, which is to help bring together industry and government experts to research and develop new cutting-edge cyber technologies. They also are establishing a national testing lab where companies can test their systems' security under simulated attacks. And then he also brought up the Small Business Administration offering cybersecurity training to all the small businesses out there. And then the fourth thing, this one kind of got some headlines. I saw one headline, it was like, password security is so bad, even the president's talking about it now. But he was talking about helping to protect citizens online and launching a national awareness campaign to basically teach Americans they got to move beyond passwords with things like setting up like the multi-factor authentication that a lot of places offer. But the thing is, he's saying they need this campaign, but I mean, I know some sites I use myself where I've asked them specifically, like I've emailed them, been like, hey, or reached out on Twitter, like, hey, you don't offer 2-factor? And they're like, oh, we're working on it. So it's interesting, the president's saying we got to launch this campaign, but then there's a lot of companies that don't even offer 2-factor authentication. So, but maybe if more customers are demanding it.
Right.
Will. And then the last thing is just to establish a bipartisan commission, basically to appoint business, strategic, and technology thinkers to provide specific recommendations to bolster cybersecurity awareness and protect the public and private sector over the next decade. So we're kind of trying to establish this long-term kind of big plan for cybersecurity.
We'll have to see how the bipartisan part goes because, that's... Obviously, recently there's been a lot of, politics are heavily in the news, and I anytime I hear the word bipartisan, I just laugh sometimes.
Well, I don't know if you read Tim Layton, the Chief Intelligence Officer at Surfwatch Labs, one of our new guys, and he's been on our podcast as well. He was quoted in an article about this subject. I don't know if you happen to read that article at all today, Matt.
I have not, no.
But anyways, in that article, talking about the politics, it was kind of interesting because the Senate and House budget committees actually put out a press release saying that they're not going to meet with the director of Office of Management to discuss the president's budget. And I don't know how common that is, but according to Senate Democrats, they then put out their own thing, signing it, saying that the committee's move is overt partisanship and that this will be the first time in the budget committee's history that a hearing won't take place. So he puts out this big proposal, and of course, politics already.
Right. All the time.
All the time.
All the time. Like a bunch of kindergartners fighting over chocolate milk or something like that.
Yeah.
It's insane. So, in addition to this, and this was my big takeaway from this new legislation from the president, there's going to be a new position created, right, Jeff? Tell me if I'm wrong. It actually is going to seek to appoint the first federal chief information security officer.
It seems like something we should have.
You would think.
With all the talk about it,
right.
It seems like you should have a guy, just like you have. What's the chief doctor? What's his?
That's not Surgeon General, is it?
Is that the Surgeon General?
Maybe.
It shows how knowledgeable we are.
Right.
But we have a chief doctor. Let's have a chief cybersecurity guy.
Well, it just kind of makes you think, look, then, so who's paying attention to this stuff? You don't have, like who was in charge of it? Someone had to be in charge of something.
Well, I think that's kind of the common criticism of government is you create all these different agencies and they don't work with each other.
Right.
And you got 10 different people doing 10 different things. So I think the goal here is to kind of have this role that's going to help coordinate all those different agencies and hopefully have an overarching plan for the country.
Well, it's good to see that the government is at least putting something forward that, is addressing the real threat of, cybersecurity in this country, because a lot of people would tell you it's one of the main threats that we face. So that I applaud the efforts. Moving on to the number 2 legal story of the week. Last week we talked about, I think it was last week, we talked about Wendy's, and there was some news about them possibly facing a data breach. Well, there has been the first official plaintiff in a class action lawsuit came forward. This happened on Monday. An Orlando man, he actually is the one that became the first plaintiff. The suit alleges that after visiting Wendy's on January 3rd, $577 in merchandise at Sports Authority and Best Buy were then fraudulently charged on the same card. The attorney for the case at Morgan & Morgan told the Orlando Sentinel that it was the first data breach case he has filed that occurred after the switch to chip-based PIN payment cards. According to the lawsuit, Wendy's has not adopted the new, more secure point-of-sale systems and instead has, quote, opted to maintain an insufficient and inadequate system, end quote. Wendy's disclosed that it was investigating a data breach. This happened back at the end of January 27th. And on Tuesday, it confirmed malware had been found on some locations. However, the total number of restaurants and customers affected has not yet been determined. I think this is really important to talk about because Jeff and I have talked about this before. If you read any type of cybersecurity articles, especially around October when the switch officially happened, chip and pin, or EMV, people call it different things, there was that liability switch. And we talk about all the time, there's still several reports out there that say how all these companies still have not made it. Well, right here could be a prime example of what happens if companies don't make the switch, because depending on how this goes for Wendy's, if they would have made the switch to chip and pin from what it's looking like, they could have saved themselves, a little bit of hassle. Maybe they still would have filed, someone would have tried to sue them for something. I think we're going to really start, this is just the beginning for something like this, in my opinion.
I guess first, obviously, we don't know exactly what happened at Wendy's, so we don't know if they would have had chip and pin, would that have prevented some or all of this from happening in the first place.
Yeah, this is clearly speculation on my part right now.
But, yeah, it is interesting because with the shift in liability, basically you're saying that I'm not going to upgrade, and as a result, I'm going to choose to have this less secure technology and take on the liability of if there's fraudulent transactions. Well, it'd be interesting to see in court how that plays out, if they can kind of use that sort of as a best practice benchmark, like everyone's saying this is the more secure technology, and you basically, I love how they say in the lawsuit, it says, you basically chose to maintain an insufficient and inadequate system. It's a pretty new system.
Yeah.
So, who knows how the judge and everyone will kind of come to rule on that. But, it'd be interesting to see if that, whether you have EMV implemented or not, it becomes like what one of the benchmarks used into whether you're taking the reasonable steps to protect customer data or not.
Yeah, because right now it's one plaintiff and he's claiming $577 in merchandise was fraudulently spent. Well, how much money do you think it costs to upgrade all of your equipment?
A little more than $500.
I'm sure. So, I'm sure more people will join the lawsuit, of course, but we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Now, another one, I found this story kind of hilarious, just how quickly it happened. You were just talking about how this week the University of Central Florida announced a data breach. Well, It took just one day between them announcing the data breach to a class action lawsuit getting filed.
Wow.
So these people are, I don't know if it's the students or the lawyers or who, but somebody's jumping all over these breaches.
People got lawyers on speed dial.
I know.
Oh, here we go.
Must not have had class the next day.
Right?
Or had a day off or something. So yeah, like we said at the beginning, like Matt said, 63,000 current and former students and staff were compromised as a result of this breach. And now a class action lawsuit has been filed against the University of Central Florida. And they claim that in addition to, the basics, exposing staff and students to potential identity theft and things like that, the lawsuit's also alleging that the university had knowledge of the breach as early as December 2015, but did not notify those affected until just a week ago, February 4th. So they said in the lawsuit, UCF owed a duty to the plaintiffs and the class to notify them about the breach within a reasonable amount of time under the circumstances, and it failed to do so, which exposed the class to additional harm. That's what the lawsuit says. And then they're also alleging that UCF violated the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which is a federal student privacy law. So it just amazed me how quick you announce you got a data breach on, Thursday, and then on Friday you're getting
right
the class action going.
We'll have to see if their argument sticks, if they can prove that, what state is it, Jeff? I don't, is it, and I apologize because I'm kind of ignorant on this, but isn't there by law a amount of time that you have to announce a breach, or is that only by state laws, like some states enact?
Well, I know there's some depending on the regulations, you might have to announce it to this government agency or this within a day or a week or 30 days or 60 days. But I know a lot of times you'll see stuff that might take a year. They might have known about it, but it's because the FBI or law enforcement. Usually that's kind of the fallback. Law enforcement said not to notify so and so. But yeah, I think it depends on a lot of different things and what industry you are and who you got to report the breach to. As far as I know, but I'm no legal expert. I just report the legal news.
Getting back to so number 4 for the week, we're going to talk about the IRS, and as Jeff said, we're going to talk about this a little bit later about that Get Transcript service that I brought up. The IRS asked a federal judge to dismiss the proposed class action lawsuit over its 2015 data breach that led to 330,000 taxpayers having their information stolen via the agency's Get Transcript service. Not only is there no proof that the incident led to any direct harm, the IRS is arguing, but the court lacks jurisdiction over the case due to the doctrine of sovereign immunity. I don't know what that means.
Basically, from my understanding is, if you're the government, you can't just sue the government. The government can do what they want.
Okay.
That's probably not quite the legal term, but basically that's what I got.
You just break it down in layman's terms for me. That's fine. That's all I need. Moving on, the government's immunity can be waived if the lawsuit is the only remedy, but the IRS believes this is not the case. So Jeff, with something like this, I mean, I'm sure some of that, it was already a little too technical for me. I mean, is this just kind of their way of getting out of it through technicalities then? Is that what you're taking from it? Or
well, now sometimes I'll get interested in these cases and I'll go on Pacer and read the actual court documents. I didn't with this one because I was reading this Law 360 article from Steve Trader, and he kind of summed it up. He wrote that the claims are preempted by statutes in the IRS code, and that since there's alternative judicial remedies to deal with this unauthorized sharing of tax return information, therefore the case should not be able to proceed in federal court. That's the IRS's position. So basically you can sue the IRS, but from my understanding, according to sovereign immunity, is if there's other remedies in place, you don't just jump right to a lawsuit.
Okay.
But since the IRS is saying, hey, we got this stuff in the tax code already in place that for taking care of this. So they're saying they should throw the case out.
That makes more sense. Thank you.
We'll see what the judge says, whether they say that's a great argument or whether they say it's baloney. The last bit of legal news for the week is we had some announcements from both the FTC and the FCC, which I thought were kind of interesting. We'll just lump them together. We talked a little bit about this new EU-US Privacy Shield, which is replacing the old Safe Harbor framework for dealing with European citizens' data and stuff like that. Well, the FTC commissioner, she was at some convention or something this week, FTC Commissioner Julie Brill, and she talked about this and basically just said that the FTC is going to, quote, strongly enforce this new EU-US Privacy Shield. And I believe the FTC brought like 39 cases against companies under this old safe harbor framework. So they're still expecting kind of to basically keep that same level up with this new agreement. But then she also said, even though safe harbor is not a valid transfer mechanism, companies can still say that, hey, we're abiding by these principles. But obviously, if you say you're going to live up to these standards, then the FTC is going to expect you to, because they're going to still hold people accountable for that. So even though safe harbor is done, technically you could still kind of get in some FTC trouble if you're living up to that. And then the FCC, they sent out this warning/reminder for telecom carriers about submitting these annual reports. Basically, anyone who is subject to the FCC's rules protecting customer proprietary network information need to file these reports certifying that they're in compliance with these rules. And in the warning, they said, quote, in prior years, many companies have either failed to file certifications entirely or filed certifications that violate our rules in material aspects. And basically, if you're failing to do that in a timely manner, then it calls into question whether the company has complied with the rules, and it could lead to different things. So if you're a telecom or involved in anything like that, you need to obviously make sure
follow the rules, telecom companies. Come on, quit being naughty.
So those are kind of two more specific little pieces of news that only apply to certain cases, but I thought it was interesting that they both kind of put out different warnings or clarifications about how they're going to enforce stuff this week. That wraps up all the legal news and all the cybercrime events, advisories, and the main portion of the podcast. Before we let you guys go, though, we have our funny story of the week brought to you by our man, Matt. Did you find anything?
Do you know what this weekend is, Jeff?
Is it Valentine's Day already?
It is Valentine's Day.
Oh, nice.
Typical two men over here. We'll be reminded of the day. Valentine's Day is upon us. The day is filled with either love, obligation, or sadness, depending on,
depending on your situation.
Depending on your situation. For those who are looking for a gift for their significant other, I happened to come across an article this week titled Love and Protect: 4 Perfect Valentine's Day Gift Ideas. Before I get into this, I just want to point out that these gift ideas have a security and technology focus. So here are the 4 gifts. Actually, I'm going to skip one of them because the third one they listed was actually just a shameless plug-in attempt to get you to buy their software. So it'll be the top 3. Number 1 was a subscription to a password manager. Yay! Nothing says I love you like a password.
Hey, honey, I got you a subscription to LastPass.
That's right. But, I will say this. If you find that your significant other is struggling, if they're one of those people that take their password security pretty seriously, maybe they're writing passwords down, well, a password manager can eliminate a lot of that by having one master password, which will then get you into any account you want to log into, and you can have whatever crazy password you want for that account. Number 2, it was the Iron Key USB. This is a biometric-enabled flash drive. It's great for individuals working out of their house, or for those who BYOD, bring your own device to work. The flash drive not only provides a password-free way to unlock it, it comes with military-grade encryption and 2-factor authentication. It can even be set to erase its contents after too many failed login attempts. That's pretty solid. I know my wife would not be happy with that, though. And the last one I'm going to bring up, this one's a little interesting to me. It was they brought up fitness trackers. Now, I've been married for a long time, and you got to make sure that you know how your significant other is going to respond to a gift like that.
Yeah, that seems a little dangerous.
Yeah, because what are you doing? Oh, here you go, honey.
You really need to get that heart rate up a little bit.
So if your significant other will not look into things like that, they do recommend fitness trackers. And there were 3 that they actually recommended based mainly on their security features. According to a study conducted by the research firm Open Effects, the Fitbit Charge HR was the most secure fitness tracker you can get, followed by the Apple Watch, and then third was the Mio Fuse. So if you do want to go that route, those are the 3 most secure. That's it for me, guys. So happy Valentine's Day, and thanks for listening.
And that'll wrap up this week's Surfwatch Cyber Risk Roundup. As always, the Surfwatch Cyber Risk Roundup is brought to you by Surfwatch Labs. Surfwatch Labs delivers cyber risk intelligence solutions that help organizations understand the potential for cyber attacks, determine the impact of their business, and proactively address threats head-on. For weekly interviews with cyber experts, check out Surfwatch Labs' other podcast, The Cyber Chat. And for more information on cyber risk intelligence, check out surfwatchlabs.com.